as long as the West, let's put it this way, continues buying Russian gas and oil, it is supporting Ukraine with one hand, while supporting Russia war machine with another hand.
Ukraine's foreign minister making the critical point at today's NATO meeting in Brussels that right now it is all about the oil. And while the West's continued efforts further isolate Russia and growing evidence of war crimes in Ukraine, the UN General Assembly voting to suspend Russia from its Human Rights Council, and the U.S. Senate passed legislation stripping Russia's favored nation trade status and banning Russian oil imports. The European Union has agreed to a ban on Russian coal, but it is still divided on Russian oil and gas, which remains untouched. The biggest stumbling block in negotiations is Germany, with its heavy dependence on Russian fossil fuels. But they are not alone, and any ban will require the consensus of all 27 EU nations. Today, France's economic minister acknowledged that calling for a halt to Russian oil imports within weeks. He added, the reality is that stopping imports of oil from Russia is what would hurt Russia the most. As my friend Rachel Maddow pointed out in her fantastic best-selling book, Blowout, that dependence on the fossil fuel industry and the way that it inflates Russia's standing is a key ingredient in the destruction that we're seeing today. The oil and gas industry, left to its own devices, will mindlessly follow its own nature. It will make tons of money. It will corrode and corrupt and sabotage democratic governance. In some, countries that depend on oil for their livelihoods eventually become among the most economically troubled, the most authoritarian, and the most conflict-ridden in the world, unquote. Meanwhile, today, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov continued to defend Putin's unprovoked war in Ukraine. But he admitted Russia has suffered significant losses of troops, calling it a huge tragedy. With me now is Tom Nichols, contributing writer for The Atlantic, and Lucas Kunce, a former Marine officer who served in Afghanistan and Iraq and a candidate for U.S. Senate in Missouri. Thank you both for being here. And Lucas, I do want to start with you because the thing is it does feel like the Ukrainian foreign minister was absolutely right. On the one hand, you've had this global unanimity that Russia is essentially now a pariah state, should be cut off from the global community, should not be on the Human Rights Council. But in the end, the Human Rights Council, it is a dramatic move, but it doesn't impact them directly in any way. The one thing that could get them is to cut off the money, and the money all comes from oil. Can you make sense of the idea that Europe is still not prepared to do that?
So I can. I was a Marine at the Pentagon for a while, and I was doing arms control negotiations directly with NATO and Russia. And so this was after Russia had invaded Crimea in 2014. I would go over to NATO, and I would try to get these same allies to take hard positions against Russia, treaty violations, invasions, everything else. And they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. And that's because since 2014, the first invasion, they actually got more reliant on Russian gas, not less. And so what they did was they expected, they were getting this cheap gas, and they expected the United States taxpayer to subsidize that gas by sending more and more troops over to protect them. And now they expect the Ukrainians to subsidize that gas with their blood. It's a tragedy, and it needs to be stopped.
Tom, it does undercut the position of the West and the forthright support when we're just watching, bodies in the street. But Germany says, we still need that oil. Every euro that they're paying for Russian oil and gas is being recycled right into the war machine that Russia is using to mass murder Ukrainians. It doesn't make sense to me, does it to you?
Well, but one of the things that you have to do with a major coalition like this with so many countries is that you have to keep the home front in those countries united in the effort to keep the pressure on Russia. And, it's an unfortunate reality, but a lot of citizens in a lot of countries around the world are not going to take kindly to suddenly having their energy costs rise dramatically or have shortages. And that's something that I think a lot of the European partners are juggling. I think the other problem, of course, is that we live in a very hyper-partisan age where these kinds of problems that would come from punishing the Russians by not dealing with them in the energy sector will get reflected back onto who's ever in power instead of on the Russians. I mean, I'm old enough to have lived through the oil embargoes back in the 70s. And, you know, the oil embargoes were because of a foreign cartel that was trying to strangle the Western economies. And yet a lot of people blamed the politicians that were in power. They blamed the president. They blamed their prime minister. You know, whoever they could lash out against. So, you know, it is a very weird part of this war that energy is flowing through an area of combat that no one seems to be interested in stopping. But it does in a kind of a roundabout way makes sense if you think about it in terms of keeping up the pressure that allows us to send weapons and money to Ukraine while strangling other parts of the Russian economy. I mean, it's not quite true that if we're not doing this, we're not doing very much. We're doing we, the Western coalition, I think, are doing quite a lot.
Yeah, indeed. And just to get our audience to really understand it, let's put up this chart. This is chart number one. This is the European Union's dependence on Russian oil, just so you can see it in numbers. $850 million a day is what they're paying in for oil and gas, $20 million a day for coal. 40% of their natural gas supply comes from Russia, 25% of the oil supply. And Lucas, I mean, the reality is, I mean, there is an election coming up in France where Emmanuel Macron is facing off against, you know, what was and what we used to think of as a far-right, Putin-enabled, Putin-supported party. And to hang on to power, he cannot probably afford to have gas prices shoot through the roof. And so you have these political considerations in places like, you know, Germany and France, where they've also got to have their own domestic politics in play. In your view, is that enough of an explanation?
No, absolutely not. And like to hear this called like a weird thing, this is not a weird thing at all. This is specifically by design. This is Putin's design. Western Europe fell for it because they thought they could get that cheap gas. And again, I was there. I was at NATO at the negotiating tables. I oversaw our additions of troops for treaty compliance, additions of equipment. They truly expected us to subsidize their cheap gas, and they're expecting Ukrainians to subsidize it with their blood. It's wrong. And like, we're actually trending towards the same problem in a different way in the future, because let's say we get Russia, let's say we get Western Europe off of Russian gas, right? Well, the next generation of energy technology as of today, it's going to come from China. Like Western Europe's talking about looking somewhere else. They're looking to China right now. They're not looking to the United States because the United States has failed here to invest in America and rebuild or build out the next generation of energy technology here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to swap Putin's design, which left major dependencies, for China's design, which is going to leave major dependencies, if we don't start to invest here and really just take a very hard position on what's going on.
Yeah, indeed. Moving into the future would seem to be the smart thing to do, but no one wants to do it. I mean, in this country, we can't even get all the Republicans to vote for a resolution just saying we just support NATO. Like, we can't even get 63 of them. Like,
there's always money for war, and there's never enough money for investing here.
No, it's a good point. Last point to you, Tom Nichols. I thought this was interesting. Here's the Russian deputy U.S. ambassador. His name is Gennady Kuzmin. This was his response to being booted out of the Human Rights Council. Take a listen.
The Russian Federation made a decision about ending or suspending its membership in the Human Rights Council before the end of its term on the 7th of April of this year.
You know, you do not submit your resignation after you are fired, and that's exactly what happened to the Russian Federation.
I mean, you can't fire me, I quit.